Hello. In this case, we're going to be building a window, but in a different way, in a more complex way rather. So let's start off with the box. Now make sure that you're in clay past the edge face option. So let's go to our parameters. And now let's say that this height is going to be at 100 centimeters. Let's have the width at 200 and the length of this box or wall, we could leave it at 15 centimeters. Now let's just create an edit poly out of this. So convert to edit poly. And now by selecting both of these polygons, I can just inset them. So right click, inset, make sure to be hitting the settings tab. And let's just type in 10. All right, now inside our edit polygons, we can find the bridge option that we already know what it does. So it basically just connects these two polygons together. So let's hit once in bridge. And now what I want to do, in order to create some detail for my window, I need to create some extra edges in between. So let's just grab all of the edges which are placed in the corners, like so, and I'm going to connect them. So let's hit the connect option once and check. And now what I want to do is just to add a chamfer so that I can create an offset. This way I'll have an extra polygon to work with. However, just before doing that, let's see how a chamfer works in a plane. So in the modify tabs, make sure that you have the 1 and 1 in the length and width segments so that we don't have any extra edges here. I'm going to right click and convert it to an edit poly, and I'm going to select both of these edges like so and connect them. All right, I'm going to move it over to this side like so and hit the OK tab. Now I'm just going to grab these two vertices and bring them up with my gizmo. Now if I select this edge right here and just apply a chamfer to it, let's add an offset by playing around with the edge chamfer amount. You can see that it starts to smoothen up my edge here. Now if I add extra segments in between, this turns into a real smooth curve. So that's what happens if we use the chamfer option within a plane or a mesh. But what happens if we use it with an edge, just with an edge? So let's just hit our 2 key to activate our edges here. And let's right click and chamfer. Now it works the same way. It's actually just offsetting this, but because we have a perpendicular shaped geometry, it's not going to smoothen up anything. So we'll end up with just this offset right here. So let's just increase it to 2.5. So we end up with 5 centimeters separating these two. And we can just leave the mid edge here. So keep this value at 1 and let's just hit OK. So if I go back to my polygons by hitting my 4 key, you can see now that I have extra poly faces here. And let's now select the bottom ones and connect them. So I'm going to use the connect and make sure that you have 0, 0 over here and just 1 value for the connect. So that means that we're going to be creating an extra edge right in the middle. So I'm just going to hit the OK button. And just to add a bit more detail, I'm going to add some glass. So let's just grab this polygon right here and this one over here. So what I want to basically do is just to create a sliding window. And let's just extrude these. And if you look closely, we have a small error here. So let's put this to the side. These are actually just bending. So let's go to the left view and make sure that you're at orthographic view. So yes, this is actually bending like so. So no worries, let's just check this, and by using our gizmo and make sure that you have your snaps toggle on with the S key, let's just snap it to the upper edge like so. Now let's go to the left view and make sure that these are actually aligned. So what I'm going to do is just to grab these vertex and this one over here too. So let's go back to our left view and I'm going to snap them right here in this edge so that they keep straight. Now I'm going to hit my S key like this. I'm going to grab these two because I'm actually grabbing this one over here and this one. So just to be clear, okay. I'm going to go back to my left view and let's just snap it to this edge right here. All right, now you can see that they're not aligned with the bottom edge. So I'm going to grab this one and snap it to this edge just to keep everything perpendicular. And now this one, I'm going to also snap it over here. And now let's see if everything is working fine. And yes, everything is well put together now. And one thing about 3ds Max and Corona Renderer is that when we're rendering glass, we only need one surface. So in this case, each glass has a thickness basically, so we don't need that. So what we're going to do is just to create window frames. So let's select all of the surfaces or polygons like so, the 4 of them. I'm going to right click and insert them. Now let's say that this window frames will have around 3 centimeters in width. So let's check them. Now let's just bridge them together again, like so. So we've basically just created a sliding window here. So to create the glass, I'm going to use the same method that I've been using. So I'm just going to grab the outer edges from this one and also from this one. Now make sure that your snap toggle is off because it can be annoying sometimes. Just turn it on when you need it. Okay, so inside edit edges, I'm going to create shape from selection. And I'm just going to keep this at linear. We know why now. Now I'm going to deselect everything and just pick the spline, right click and convert it to an edit poly so that it ends up with the surface here. Now notice that this one has disappeared. Okay, and the reason behind that, so let's just isolate the spline. All right, so if you can select the spline, just click once and then again, and 3ds Max will basically help you select what you want. So if I click once, it's going to just pick the whole surface, but if I click again, 3ds Max will take it as you want to actually select the spline, which is correct. So I'm going to right click and now I'm going to hide unselected just to isolate these guys. All right, so we have a problem here. This is why the edit poly was getting an error there. So we basically have this extra edge. So I might have just selected the wrong edges there. So I'm going to just delete this one by going into spline and just delete it. Okay, now what I need to do is just to create a line in between these two vertices. So this is what the create line tool is for. So if you already have a spline and you want to keep on adding stuff to the spline, you can choose the create line. So this way, if I just turn on my snaps, I'm going to just pick this one and this one. So it's going to ask me if I want to weld those vertices and I'm going to say yes, please. And now unselect the create line and let's just make sure that everything is welded. So let's pick the vertices and now inside geometry, we can just weld all of them like so. We can also make sure that all of them are in a perpendicular way and we don't have any fillets going on by accident. So we can select all of the vertices, right click, and we can just turn the corner on. Now we can know that maybe something's wrong if we have these smoothen tools here. Okay, so we can just select them all, right click and corner. You can see that that option has disappeared now. So that means that all of them are in a perpendicular way. So I'm going to right click and convert to edit poly. And this time we have the surfaces all clean. I'm going to right click and unhide all. And I'm just going to grab this pivot and center it. So let's go to the hierarchy option, affect pivot only, and center to the object. Now let's just deactivate the snaps and place them right in the center. So I can go to the top view, hit my F3 as always, and just place them right in the middle there. Alright, so now I can probably just detach the window frames so that they act as a single element. So I'm just going to grab my whole mesh and I'll be picking all of the faces that compose this window here, like so, and now I can detach it. So let's go to my edit geometry and detach. Now I just want to completely detach this, so I'm not going to detach it as a clone or element, so I'm going to hit OK. Let's press the F3 now, and if I just get this one out here, you can see that I'm missing some faces here, which we can easily add by just choosing the edges. And now because they're naked edges, we can just drag them with the Y axis. So by hitting the Shift key and then hitting the S for the snaps, I can just snap it with this one here. Now these ones are not going to be welded, so we have to weld the vertices. I'm going to hit 1 for vertices, select everything, and now just go into my edit vertices and weld. Keep in mind that if we find a naked edge, it's just like a border, right? We can just drag them as we usually do with our gizmo and create surfaces like that way. Okay, so I left this surface here in between, so this is going to be replaced with our actual window frame here, so I'm just going to delete it like so. And also we don't want this to be happening, we don't want this empty face here like this, so we're just going to be selecting the edge over here, and just by holding the Shift key we can just drag it all the way over here and snap it to this edge here. Now I can select the same edge without unselecting, pressing Shift, and using my gizmo I can also create this kind of cap here. Alright, there we go. Now I can just select this surface too with my 4 key for polygons and detach it too. So I'm going to go to Edit Geometry and detach this one, and OK. Now make sure to center the pivot again, so let's go to Hierarchy, Affect Pivot Only, and Center to Object. And let's just drag it over here. So we can drag it just in this midpoint if we have our midpoint activated on our gizmo. So if we go over here, just a reminder, you can right click to our snaps and make sure that this midpoint is on. So now I can also just place this in the center of my window frames. All right, there we go. Now unselect the snap, and let's just place this right there. Now we can do the same with this one. So really quick, let's just select this mesh for polygons and select all of these faces, which are just our window frames for this window. I'm going to detach them. Okay. Now unselect everything, and I've selected something else here, which is bad. So Control Z, and now 4 for polygons, and just unselect this with our Alt key, like so. Now detach, and OK. Let's unselect everything, and let's drag this one out so that we can see how it's looking. Okay, so again, I have to choose these naked edges here and just drag them with my gizmo by holding Shift and activating the snaps with S, and just drag them like so. Now weld them by hitting the 1 key for vertex. And now let's just go into our edit vertices and weld. I'm just going to drag this one out over here, but before that I'm going to just open our hierarchy options, affect pivot only, and center to object. Make sure to have the affect pivot only unselected, and just by snapping this to our midpoint, there we go. And again, we might have some extra voids here. So I'm going to select this edit poly, make sure that you have the edge selected, and let's do the same thing. Just drag it with a Shift just to cover up this. Snap it to the edge there. Again, snap it to the bottom edge here, and once again, snap it over here so that we don't have any voids there. Okay, so we also have to center this pivot here and now unselect the snaps so that we can place it right there. Let's go to our top view and F3 just to make sure that we're placing this in the right position. Now one thing that without attaching, I just want to group them because basically what I will have, and just before continuing we can see that we have some errors there, so we can just go back to our top view, select this both the window frame and glass. So let's go to the top view, F3, and let's just place it correctly like so. Now what if I wanted to just move these together but not attaching them? Because once we attach them, it's going to be a bit more difficult to add the different material to the glass and a different material to the window frame. So I just want to move them together without them inheriting the materials. We haven't seen materials yet, obviously, but just a heads up. So I'm just going to select these two and go to my group tab, group, and group them. So I'm just going to name this window 1 and hit OK. Now the same thing, let's select both of these, group, and this is going to be window 2 and hit OK. Now I can move them together without actually attaching them. So if I move it like so, there's my sliding window. Now we can just put some extra detail into this, like the window handles, and that's very easy to do. We're just going to go to our standard primitives. I'm going to select a box and make sure that you have the auto grid on so that this one will be created just on top of this window frame, like so. So let's just give it an extra detail, and I'm not going to be using any specific measurements for this. So let's just convert this to an edit poly, pick the surface, the polygon here, make it a little bit more bigger, and I'm just adding some extra detail here. So this is a handle. I'm just going to insert both of these faces. 1 centimeter is okay. In edit polygons, let's just bridge this like so. And maybe it's just coming out a little bit too much. So let's grab our mesh and 1 for vertex. And let's just get this closer over here. And maybe just a tiny bit smaller, like so. And this one, by holding my shift key, I can just bring it over here as an instance. So they're identical windows, so that's why I'm instancing them, like so. Okay, I can group now these handles to our main object, so I'm going to select this one and ungroup them. So click and ungroup them, and I'm going to select this with my control key. Now let's go back to group, and now window 1.1 and OK. The same thing with this one. Let's select this window, ungroup, control just to pick the handle, and group again. So window 2.1. And there we have our sliding windows. Alright, so that's it for this lecture. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. We've seen how to create a more detailed window by using some more methods. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.